Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter study group. This is one of our very last, next to the very last study group for the month of May. This is our 34th consecutive class. Welcome. Our mission here is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the Tampa Bay IT community. We not only serve Tampa Bay, but all of North Florida, as well as people all over the world. You're welcome to come join our chapter. We will provide you training, we'll provide you mentorship, we'll review your resume, we'll help you, if we can, find a job. So just get in contact with us. Speaking of getting in contact with us, these are the ways you can reach us. First of all, you are currently attending our Tuesday evening study groups from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. We also have a meetup. We meet on Zoom online at this time. Past recordings are right here. If you will go to this recording location, you can see recordings for chapters within the BABOK as well as techniques. We have the IIBA site, websites, meetup, Facebook, and 2 different LinkedIn groups. This is a schedule of the past classes that we took. We did chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we are currently in the techniques chapter. We are a volunteer supported organization. Cliff is our fearless leader, our president. Lori is our vice president of finance. We also have Caitlin and Priscilla as our board members at large. My name is Thea Raisins. I am the vice president of career and professional development. Tiffany Gardner leans in occasionally to help me out. Bob Churchill is online here. He has earned his CBAP certification. He also has a plethora of other letters following his name, all of things that he has diligently taught himself and taken the test and passed. If you would like to see some of his work, you can go here to his website. He has an amazing catalog of information, not just business analysis, but also project management, mechanical engineering, Lean, Six Sigma. He's done processes for the people that he can't tell you the letters that their organizations represent because then he'd have to kill you. He can be reached at this email address. We have, as I said, we are on our 35th consecutive class. Looks like I need to put in attendance for last week. I will have someone take a screenshot of our attendance and put it in here so that we can give you credit. Every hour that you participate in our study group, that hour goes to your education credit for your CBAP certification or any of the other IIBA certifications that you would want. Just contact me and I can give you a list of the dates that you attended as well as what we were talking about on those dates. So tonight,
not to interrupt you, Thea, sorry.
Go ahead.
I put the screen prints for each meeting out on that share drive between you, me, and Bob. So the
I
stuff's
saw
out
that
there for you. Okay,
I just
good.
done it this last week and I should have.
No. I just want to make sure you know it's there. Never mind. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Bob Churchill has done a majority of our trainings. These are the last 3 that he's going to do. So we need people to step up to do some of these others that have nothing in there. Future, we need business capability analysis, business rules analysis.
I can volunteer. I'm happy to do one for next week if you want me to.
Okay, and sequence diagram. I don't know.
What do you need for next week?
How about business rules analysis?
Okay, I'll do that one. So you want a presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, presentation. Okay, let me get it on my. Let me book it on my calendar. Give me 1 second. I have homework. Yes.
I think somebody did one of the ones down below.
Let me. It should be 31st instead of 13th.
And you said business rules analysis, right?
Yes, sir. If you would also like to take business capability analysis, it's kind of similar.
It sounds like it is similar. I read about it before. Yeah. So you want me to do both the same week?
Absolutely, that'd be phenomenal.
So PowerPoint slide has to be straight from the BABOK, right? With examples, right?
That would be great. So tonight, Bob is going to be doing decision analysis as well as estimation. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob so he can begin his presentation. I do encourage everyone to participate because it's your questions and comments and recollections of how you were able to use these techniques, or questions about how to use these techniques, that makes this very, very valuable. So Bob, take it away.
Just so you know, I think someone did sequence diagrams, I think.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, let us start with estimation. Can you see that?
I can. Thank you.
Okay, so estimation is about trying to predict future outcomes, mostly related to time, money, and quality of features or performance. The BABOK only talks about really time and money, but in reality, estimations can and are made about pretty much everything. Because these things are done in an environment of uncertainty, the judgments you end up doing are entrepreneurial. So you have to make a guess about how it's going to work for your business. One of the most important things to know about estimation is the more information you have, particularly based on experience, analogous historical situations, and your own knowledge and training, the more accurate the estimations are likely to be. So there are a bunch of kinds of estimation. So top down and bottom up mean either peeling apart kind of a problem from the top down, breaking it into little pieces, and then estimating all the aspects of the various parts. Bottom up is the obvious. You're starting with all the parts you know about and building up a solution based on the sum of all the estimations. So parametric estimation basically works like those, but it basically multiplies all those components by known values of any of the parameters. Like you might say, okay, I'm gonna need 2,000 bricks, so that's gonna be 3 pallets, and I know they cost per pallet, so I can estimate that way. Rough order of magnitude is basically a guess. It's an educated guess. There are some funny and not very socially acceptable names for that. Wild ass guess is one. There are funnier and nastier ones. Rolling wave estimation is basically continuing to revisit an estimation as time goes on and as more information comes in. And this definitely happens as you get close to the end of an engagement or project and there are fewer unknowns, and what you're guessing converges with the actuality. A Delphi technique is basically a predictions about the future that a lot of people participate in, and then you come to a consensus. Omni magazine was a magazine that was around for a little over 20 years, from the late 70s to the late 90s. I read every issue, loved it. Science fact, a lot of other random interesting stuff. In their first issue, they did a Delphic poll, and they asked people when they thought certain events and scientific breakthroughs were going to happen. And then a handful of issues later, they posted the results. Many of those things have already come to pass. Obviously, some of the others are for in the future. More practical and germane to this group application of that is making predictions about how hard things will be to accomplish, or the level of effort for items in a Scrum planning session. So you're making estimates of how long different tasks will take to do. And many people may think one thing, but some people may know something either to the upside or the downside that other people won't know. For example, you get a test that most people either don't get or have never seen before or haven't thought about. And they'll say, you know, it'll take X amount of time to complete. And then somebody else will say, well, hey, I've done this before. I've got the code on a thumb drive someplace so I can plug it in, or I've seen this on Stack Overflow, or I know a buddy who tried to do this a while back and it turned out to be super gnarly and complex. And so they will socialize that information across the group, and you can build a new consensus that way. So that's basically how that works. The PERT technique is basically doing an average of the expected outcome, the best possible outcome in the worst case scenario, but you overweight the expected outcome by a factor of 4. So the guess is mostly what you expect, except it takes into account the possibilities for something weird happening. Estimates can be given as point values, as in, I think, you know, it's going to cost $2,796.22, or it can be given as a rate saying, I think it's going to cost between $2,500 and $3,000. There's a measure called a confidence interval, which is generally 1 minus the maximum expected error as a percentage. So if you think your guess is going to be within 5%, plus or minus. The confidence interval would be 5% or 0.95, I'm sorry. So now with that 5%, you can have a range of 5% low to 5% high, and that's actually 10%. So you're going to be within 5% in either direction. They often call that the error half length. You'll see that come up. So that's interesting. I encountered that for the first time when I was doing discrete event simulations for aircraft maintenance and fleet maintenance. Some of those numbers, there are statistical measures that spit out those numbers where you set them and they determine how many samples you need to collect based on the known distribution and the accuracy you want. So that points to an article on sample sizes. Estimates should generally be made by the people who are responsible for the outcomes that are based on the estimates. I suppose it's possible that, you know, a manager will make an estimate and hold other people to it, but that's not generally very good. But, you know, that's reality sometimes. Any questions about estimation?
Whenever I was working on this for the BABOK 3, I honestly thought PERT was a practical joke.
I've learned about it as part of my PMP and the Six Sigma. So it's out there. It may be goofy, but at the end of the day, when you make decisions, you ultimately have to use some basis. And maybe it's not very good, but it's something. And there are many combinations and permutations of things people try. So that's all I can tell you about that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments about estimations, guys? As BAs, we're typically not asked to do many estimations, but if you go and get into the PM world, you're going to find that it's going to be required. Product ownership sometimes calls for that skill, that practice occasionally as well.
Well, the implementers, for the example I gave, they do a lot of it also. And as BAs, you need to be aware of that process.
Right.
Since you're a go-between between the managers and implementers and testers and customers, you have to know how they're all thinking about things. I've managed budgets and earned value management and done invoices and kept track of things down to the net. And you always have to have an ongoing tabulation of what's going on and what you expect. All right, let's talk about decision analysis. Some decisions are straightforward. There's a limited number of factors and very clear delineations between what's a go and a no-go. But as situations become more complex, there are more factors, more complications, more trade-offs, more considerations that cancel each other out or oppose each other. If you make this factor better, it makes this factor worse. Then you need to use more and more complicated techniques. And a lot of times you have to do this under conditions of uncertainty, and you might not be able to make the optimal decision, but a lot of times you got to make some decision. You have to document your thinking for it and just let it rip. So in general, the process of making a decision is like doing a whole engagement of business analysis or a project in general. It's just a smaller kind of thing. So you define a problem, identify alternatives, evaluate, and then choose one. And then you implement the chosen alternative. You also have to identify the decision criteria and the people who will be making the decisions. You generally want to use the simplest method possible, but no simpler. You may not have time to or resources to do super complex methods. When you get to the end, there are a lot of times where, okay, maybe you wish you had taken more time because you would have seen things that you stumbled across. A lot of times things work out, sometimes they don't. Do the most due diligence that makes sense. I spent a lot of time doing computer simulations and other very complex kinds of decision support. They costed some of them a lot of money and take a lot of time and require a high degree of organizational maturity, and analysis has to go on for a program that persists over a long time. So governments and large corporations are often the only people that can do some of the more complex analysis. So let's look at some just going from simple to more complex. So pros versus cons, you make two columns, you list all the good factors, you list all the bad factors. Whichever has more thing, then you'll choose that option. That's good for choosing between, say, two options or doing or not doing one thing. Or you could do several of them and see how they stack up. And that's a very flat approach. The next level of complexity is you give a weighting to all the pros and cons. Like that may count as a 3 on this side. That's a big 8 on that side. There's a whole bunch of little things on this side and so on. And there's an overall weighting. So the way it's called a force field analysis because it's typically drawn as a bunch of arrows pointing against a central wall. and they're fighting over control of which way the wall's going to go. Sometimes the wall is vertical and the arrows are horizontal. Sometimes the arrows are up and down and the wall is horizontal. So either way it will work. You draw the arrows of different lengths and or thicknesses and or colors to show their relative weights. It's a perfectly fine analysis. The first time I saw it, it was by this annoying TQM consultant we have, and I've always thought it was kind of cheesy and consultancy, but I have to be careful about that because I'm a consultant myself. And I love pictures and finding interesting ways to communicate things, and this is effective. It can be used for any kind of decision. So decision matrices is the next level. You're listing many different criteria and scoring them for multiple options, and then adding up these scores to choose the one with presumably the highest score. If you want to go to the next level of complexity, you'll assign weights or multiples to some of the criteria. So even though they're weighted on the same scale, say 1 to 10, some of them might count 2, 3, or 4 times as much. The weighting could be Fibonacci 1, 2, 4, 7, that kind of thing. Or they could be like, they're only a little different, so you might go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So one won't be twice as much. The weighting is only a little different between them. There are pictures of those in the BABOK that describe more. A decision table, and I linked to a Wikipedia article, involves defining groups of values and the associated result and decision that goes with that. So that means you're aware of a bunch of factors in situations, and you have pre-canned decisions associated with every set of sub-criteria. They're really easy to implement in code, typically using simple operations like if, then, else, and case statements. Decision trees, I've written simulations that do a form of this. So imagine doing a tree structure that starts from an entry node and then branches out based on a result and a comparison at every node. And then you go through potentially many layers of this. The tree can be as complicated and consider as many different decision criteria as you want. And finally, get down to the leaf or ending nodes that represent the actual decisions. So constructing those involves really being able to identify the criteria, and there were usually mathematical operations that are fairly straightforward at each of the internal decision nodes that lead to the final decision. So there's a thing called a comparison analysis that's in the BABOK. I couldn't poke around, or I did poke around, and didn't find much in the way of specific information on this. In general, every kind of decision is based on a comparison analysis. Maybe Thea can say something about that in a moment. So an analytic hierarchy process involves some combination of techniques, but they're kind of hierarchically ranked based on the judgments of many participants, and it ends up being kind of a multi-level filter. And again, you're not looking for one ideal solution. It's just whatever would be the best fit and most appropriate option. There's a technique called totally partially not. What that tries to identify is what activities or characteristics or responsibilities are within the purview of a given group. So if we're talking about a department and we're talking about different activities, an activity may be totally within the department's control, partially in its control, or not in its control. And that helps you isolate where the responsibilities are and maybe the required capabilities related to it. That's one I never heard of before. There's a whole complex field of study around multi-criteria decision analysis. There's a link there to the Wikipedia article about it. I won't say too much. It's a huge area of operations research. There's a lot of potential math and graphical analysis. It looks quite interesting. The last one BABOK mentioned in this list is algorithms and simulations. Like I said before, they can take a long time to set up and require a lot of expertise and maturity, and they're only really used when there's a lot of resources available. So most of what I did in my career was based on simulation and complex mathematical analysis. It made it hard to find new positions sometimes because not a lot of people doing, and people look at that experience and they say, well, how does that apply to me? Trade space analysis is really not presented in this list. In the BABOK, they talk about doing trade-offs in general, so I just talk about trade-offs. I already discussed it previously when we're talking about conflicting criteria. This one gets better as this one gets worse. That happens in almost every kind of analysis you do. So I wanted to go into a few interesting aspects of criteria and decisions based on something I, as a Pittsburgher, find very interesting. In 1985, very early in the year, Rand McNally released a big paperback book that rated the largest 329 metropolitan areas in the United States across 9 different considerations, including LBIs, which figures how you measure that, housing, jobs, crime, transportation, education, healthcare, recreation, and climate. And to absolutely everybody's surprise, Pittsburgh was judged to have the highest score on that scale. And even the city leader thought that was kind of goofy, but it goes to show that decisions, when you set them up, analyses can produce fairly unexpected outcomes. So a lot of people love New York, but it scores really bad on crime. And the crime is not too bad in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh also has good education and healthcare. There's a lot of research there that you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a hospital. The University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon spawned a lot of research in medicine and technology, and there's a lot of art stuff, and the environment's really neat. So there's a lot of great things that go on. Now, Pittsburgh, its topography is insane. Navigating from one place to another is as much art as science. In the days before GPS, somebody published a book called Pittsburgh Figured Out, which is how to get to various places in different parts of town that not everyone knew. There's a ton of mountains, rivers bisect everything. And during the summer, there's construction. Then they'll close the detour. It's just a mess. They built a whole bunch of new highways, and they didn't have the room or money to finish the interchanges. So there are places where you will have to stop and go through a traffic light and wait several cycles to transfer between major highways, that any place else would just have ramps and you never stop. So it's a weird place. One of the interesting factors is when they were rating climate and assigning scores for that, what they chose was cities that had an average temperature of 65 degrees were judged the best. But, how do you really define that? San Francisco, which finished second or third in that survey, and has finished one in some of the subsequent editions, had the same mean temperature. But Pittsburgh's much hotter in the summer and much colder in the winters, and the winters can be miserable in Pittsburgh. That same 65 degrees in San Francisco is very consistent all year round. Never really snows, never really gets stupidly hot. There are kinds of sourdough bread that can only really be made in San Francisco because of the consistent climate. So how do you judge that? You have to be aware of what goes into every consideration in every metric in your decisions. Also, now that I live in Florida and I was born here and have visited all my life, I know that having it be warmer is awfully nice. And so, how do you change the scoring for that criteria in a complicated rating process if you want, say, 75 degrees to be the optimum score? And you should be aware of considerations like this and make allowances for it. Now, one of the things the Almanac did was they had a table in the back that let you give your own weightings to some of these factors. Maybe if you're a kid or you have kids, education's gonna be more important. And if you're, living in penthouses and have bodyguards, crime might not be an issue. So everyone's individual considerations might be different. So they gave you a worksheet to do some of your own comparison by modifying their weightings the original authors put together. Another consideration was, look at the city that finished last. So Yuba City was 329 out of 329 in the first edition. And when a bunch of civic leaders from all these places got together at a conference following the publication of the book, the people representing Yuba City said, look, man, this place isn't evil, it just isn't much. So size and other considerations can affect the other ratings. So one final thing I will say is that sometimes you apply your process and then you step back and see how you feel about it. And that tells you whether you're going to follow through or not. For example, I might go through the worksheet in the book I just talked about, and it might say I should move to Dallas. And I'm like, no way, the Cowboys are there. I wouldn't be caught dead in Dallas. Similarly, I wouldn't be caught dead in Cleveland either. But Chattanooga, hey, that might work. Now, in other situations, as doing competitive bids, you publish your scoring system and you have to live by the results. So they're judged to be above board, and no favoritism is applied. So there are different approaches for different situations. All right, we made it through that. Does anyone have any observations on any of it?
I have a question. This is Paloma Greenwald. I guess I'm wondering if anyone here, anyone that has an opinion or experience can comment. Is there a particular process that lends itself to the scoring or evaluating human behavior? Like, for example, if a committee has to select a particular candidate for, for a board position or some job advancement, something that takes into account the person rather than just metrics, maybe?
You can use comparison analysis for that, Paloma. Comparison analysis is all about identifying what makes one person different than another company or product or whatever. And then you can look at it and say, okay, of these differences, which ones do we value or which ones do we not want?
Okay. I was afraid you were going to say that because that's the one that Bob sort of mentions having, little backup in his research. So,
Well, there's lots of backup online. If you just Google it, you can find it.
okay. All right. I will do that. Thank you.
Also, the analytic hierarchy process, I provide the link to the wiki article.
Okay.
It specifically describes choosing people for a position, for example, a senior executive.
Right.
And there's a technique that's geared toward that. One thing, organizations do a lot of weird things. So what they might do is they kind of give a carrot to 3 people and say, if you guys sell out and really give your all, someday you can be running this place. But there's 3 of them, and so they go wild, working themselves to the bone, and one person gets it, and the other 2 are holding the bag. And you have to decide whether you want to be part of that from the participant end. I see organizations do it, so there's a lot out there to consider.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Paloma, I would always suggest that whenever you're looking for somebody for a specific position, rather than doing an evaluation of the people that apply, first do your evaluation of what you value for that position, and then do your evaluation of the people that apply.
Okay, got it. Good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, or has anyone used any of these techniques?
Yeah, this is Bonnie. I'm a little late, but the estimations, I've had to perform BA estimations, like when I've led BA teams for certain projects. We were doing agile. I was charged with, providing some estimation times for, our work. So I was able to actually at a BA level to utilize that particular technique. So it was good. I mean, I think it took some time to really learn how to effectively utilize it, but it came handy. So that's my experience with it. And then in a previous conversation you and I had, I've had to step into the project management shoes, even if temporarily. And I found that because I was allowed to utilize the BA estimation tool, it was a lot easier when I had to step into the project management shoes. And that's all I had to offer. This is always it. I find, the information that we're sharing here so rich, and I can use it immediately.
Good.
So I just want to thank you and Bob both. This is just awesome, everybody.
Bob does a fantastic job bringing us good content. If you ever go into a Scrum Master role or role, you'll also find that estimation is very important. Scrum Masters specifically work with burn down charts or burn up charts. And so it's important that you understand how they do that if you're going to be working with those roles or if you're going to be taking on those roles. So estimation is kind of like algebra. You know, you're doing a rate of 15 points per sprint. So, and you know how many points you have in your backlog because you've got your backlog groomed or refined.
Yes.
And that you can say, well, then it's going to take us 8 sprints to get this done, or we're going to have a bunch of holidays coming up, so it's going to take us 9 sprints to get this done. So you can use estimation in that way as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
We talked about estimating individual tasks within sprints as part of a Delphi technique. Obviously, doing budgeting or earned value management is the next step up and burned on down charts or something like that. They involve that. Ben Hur, just so you know, all my presentations are that I share with you here as I speak to them are on the blog page of my website at rpchurchill.com.
Yeah, I saw it. I read the link. I was going through it, and it's really some really good content out there. I'm definitely gonna use it. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, any other questions about comparison or estimation? Or anything else that Bob talked about?
Now just absorbing.
No.
Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left. Bob, do you have a nugget to give? If you don't, I've got something.
It does.
Okay, let's talk about resumes real quick. I went to a resume seminar not very long ago, and as you can probably guess, I've built a couple of resumes over the years. And the style of that is the current style of resumes has changed many times over the years. And what I discovered is I had some things that were a little bit out of date. So I thought I would just lay out some ideas that you can consider for your own resume. The first thing is your name, of course, appears at the very top of the page. Immediately under your name needs to be contact information. They don't need to know where you live. They don't need to know your address. They don't need to know your zip code. Unfortunately, zip codes as well as your address can be used to identify your demographic, and they don't need to know. So just don't put that information. Put a phone number, put an email. If you want to give them a website, you can put it there, but I would suggest just a phone number and email address. Then immediately underneath that, you need to put the job title of the job you're going for. Not your current job title, not job titles you've held in the past, but the one you're going for, because it's kind of this is the resume for.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you mind if I share my resume?
If you'd like to.
Yeah, I'll share my resume. I have it handy. I'm on job hunting right now. I'm doing like a lot of interviews soon. And I worked really hard by my resume. It's been edited by Career Services, my school. But this is so like you just said, I have my LinkedIn profile, I have my email, and then I have my phone number on there, my clearance, my citizenship, and then my information. And I have a quick summary of what I'm looking for, my background. Okay. Like, so I want to start a career as an IT business analyst. So I put that on there on my resume.
Very good.
So that's what I did. So I have a quick summary of my, of what I'm looking for specifically. And then I have my education. So I recently graduated December 2021. Yep. So I graduated December 2021. From George Mason, Fairfax, Virginia. I have a minor in business. And I listed all my technical skills. So and these are all my technical skills and what I've done like throughout. So I've done like a certification program before when I was doing my associate degree. So that's where I listed all my technical skills and then stuff I learned from college. That's on there.
Okay.
And then I've done my professional experience. So my last professional experience was George Mason, my senior design project. I was assistant admin and business analyst. So that's on there. And this is all I'm not gonna go into details, but this is all my professional experience in technology. Stuff I've done in technology related, so and what I'm looking for. I'll send it to you. You can look through it if you want to.
I tell you what, let's go back up to the top and I'll walk through some things that can possibly make it better for you real quick.
Sure. Sure.
5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like for you to make notes of these, not make these changes right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna make notes. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to right align your dates, learn how to use the right align tab in Microsoft Windows. You're going to go up to the top left corner, click on the tab button, and it's going to switch it to, you can go through a couple. It's going to go right, center, I'm sorry, left, center, right, and then create your right align tab for the entire document. And that way you can right align all of your dates where they line up properly.
Got it.
Secondly, for technical skills, be sure those are technical skills that are currently being looked for in the jobs that you are currently being applying for. If they are not, for instance, HP printers, they don't care. But if you have SAP or SaaS, they might care. So you got to see if what you're listing is something that they would be searching for. Number 3, whenever you talk about what you were doing in your previous experience, talk about the value that you brought to the project, what you were able to accomplish. They probably know what a system administrator and business analyst did. What did you do particularly that added value to the company? If you manage something on a regular basis, you can say I managed this and brought tracking. I created a tracking program which improved performance 10% or something. But be honest, absolutely honest. Don't ever fudge on these things.
Yeah, that's one thing.
you
Honestly,
got-
the best policy.
You got to italicize things in one area, and then on the same, for instance, the dates are italicized on St. Mark Catholic School, but they're not italicized on George Mason University. For people that are OCD, that will make them crazy, and they won't handle the detail.
Where's that? It's not. I thought. No, it's not. Where? They're both bolded. They're not. It's not. I thought it's. Oh, they're here. Yeah, the dates that you want. Sorry,
The dates.
I missed.
Yes.
It. Yeah, you didn't say. I didn't hear you. You didn't say dates. That's why. Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Okay. When in your summary, I would suggest you have no more than 2 sentences, what it is you're looking for and then some specifics about it. A lot of people are going to skip anything that's as long as what you have. I bet you what you have is important and impressive, but they just need, what are you looking for? You don't have a title for your resume as far as what your job title is you're looking for. Having a title up at the top not only lets them know exactly what the position is you're looking for, but it allows you to have a resume for product owner and a different one for business analysis and a different one for Scrum Master, whatever the third job that you are considering.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I want to get into IT business analyst, but at the moment, I'm not particularly picky. I just want any kind of job so I can get back. I can get back to it. That's why it's not on there. But I do not have to do that. Once I get I start my career path, I will do that. I will definitely make those changes.
Okay, once you get this updated and you get your most important stuff above the fold on the first page, be sure that you have your name and contact information as the header for every subsequent page. So if someone drops a page of printed, that they can see who it belongs to on the subsequent pages. So learn how to use your header in Microsoft Word. Then make your LinkedIn profile match your resume exactly. You can add a couple of other things, but be sure that there's no contradictions on anything.
Yeah.
And then put it on Dice. If you put it on Dice and then update it once a week, just add a space, move a period, something. They get the recruiters on Dice automatically get notified whenever people are active, and they'll contact you a lot faster.
I don't use Dice as much. I use mostly Indeed, Monster. I got to do that.
I would suggest if you're not having luck on Indeed, add Dice to your list.
Definitely.
Dice, Career Builder, Indeed, and Glassdoor, as well as LinkedIn. Those
Exactly.
4 will get you where you need.
So like I'm like my average, like just like today I had an interview earlier this morning. So I'm averaging like at least 2 to 3 interviews, and I'm getting a lot of calls from recruiters.
That's
Hopefully I
very
get one.
good.
Yeah, so that's my
That's
average.
good.
I'm doing these for fun. Like tomorrow I booked 2 for 3:30, 4:30, 4:30, 50. So I do these, like I book them and then hopefully I get an offer. But I will.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Anything else?
Okay. One last thing, whenever they ask you what your salary expectations are, counter that with, this is my experience I'm bringing to the table and what is the range of the salary you're offering. Because if you ask that, they're more likely to tell you a range instead of only give you what you ask for. If you want $20 an hour, they are happy to pay you $20 an hour, even if they could have paid you 60. And
That's
a lot
true.
of people leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys, we're at 7 o'clock. Thank you for your attention and participation. Thank you for not falling asleep on us. Bob has a captivating presentation every time. Next week, it's going to be Ben-Hur that's going to show us a few things, and Bob is going to show us one more thing. I forgot what it is, Bob. What is it next week?
Decision modeling.
Decision modeling, that's right. So we've got business rules analysis and decision modeling next week. So we will go over that. And we are getting so close to not having anything left in techniques. If y'all have something else that you're interested in here, please contact me through LinkedIn if we can create a meeting just for that. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, attention, and focus, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you,
Hey, yeah.
Bob. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. See you guys next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.